After World War I, Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, which placed heavy restrictions on its military, economy, and pride. Poverty, unemployment, and humiliation spread across the country. In 1933, Adolf Hitler came to power, taking advantage of this anger and despair. He promised to rebuild Germany, claiming that the Germans were a superior race that needed more land and power. Hitler broke the treaty by secretly building up the German military. He annexed Austria and later took over part of Czechoslovakia. Britain and France did little to stop him, hoping to avoid another war. But in September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, Britain and France finally declared war. World War II had begun. In the early stages, Germany used a strategy called blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This meant sudden, fast attacks using tanks, aircraft, and soldiers, leaving the enemy no time to recover. Germany quickly captured Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and even France in 1940. France collapsed in only 6 weeks. Britain stood alone. At Dunkirk, thousands of British soldiers were rescued by boats and taken back across the English Channel. Soon after, Hitler tried to defeat Britain by launching the Battle of Britain. German planes bombed London and other cities for months. But the Royal Air Force fought back and forced Germany to give up the invasion plan. Italy and North Africa, Hitler's ally, Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy, joined the war. Italy tried to expand into North Africa and Greece, but faced defeat. Germany had to send troops to help. One of the most important battles happened in Egypt at El Alamein in 1942, where British forces stopped the German advance. This battle marked a major turning point in North Africa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, in June 1941. Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in history, against the Soviet Union. Millions of German troops crossed the border. At first, they made huge progress and advanced deep into Soviet territory. But soon the vast distances, harsh winter, and strong Soviet resistance slowed them down. The battles of Stalingrad 1942-43 and Kursk 1943 were devastating for Germany. Millions died and the German army was forced into retreat. This was Hitler's first major defeat and the beginning of his downfall. War in Asia and the Pacific. Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan was expanding its empire. It had seized Manchuria in 1931 and later invaded large parts of China. Lacking natural resources, Japan looked toward Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. The United States opposed Japan's expansion and imposed economic sanctions. In response, on December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. Navy base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This attack brought the U.S. fully into the war. Japan quickly captured territories across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. But its momentum was stopped in the Battle of Midway, 1942, where the U.S. Navy destroyed much of Japan's fleet. This battle turned the tide in the Pacific. Turning points in the war by 1943, the balance of power had shifted. Germany was retreating in the Soviet Union, Italy's fascist government collapsed, and Allied forces invaded Sicily and southern Italy. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched the famous D-Day invasion in Normandy, France. This was the largest seaborne invasion in history. American, British, and Canadian forces landed on the beaches, broke through German defenses, and began liberating France. Meanwhile, the Soviets were pushing from the east. Germany was being crushed from both sides. The end of the war by early 1945, Allied forces had entered Germany. In May 1945, Soviet troops captured Berlin. Hitler committed suicide in his bunker, and Germany surrendered. Victory in Europe was complete, but the war in the Pacific continued. Despite heavy bombing, Japan refused to surrender. In August 1945, the U.S. dropped 2 atomic bombs, first on Hiroshima, then on Nagasaki. The destruction was unimaginable. At the same time, the Soviet Union invaded Japanese-held Manchuria. Facing certain defeat, Japan finally surrendered in September 1945. World War II was over. Aftermath and consequences. World War II was the deadliest conflict in human history, with about 60 million deaths. The Soviet Union, China, and Jewish victims of the Holocaust suffered the greatest losses. The world changed forever. The United Nations, UN, was created to prevent future global wars. European colonial empires began to collapse, leading to independence in Asia and Africa. 2 new superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union, starting a new era of rivalry known as the Cold War. Summary: World War II reshaped the modern world. It showed the horrors of total war, the dangers of fascism and dictatorship, and the devastating power of nuclear weapons. It remains a warning from history. Peace must be protected, because the cost of global war is far too great.